Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday, May 1st, 2026. Today, we are in full moon energy in Scorpio. The time of the full moon Eastern time was 1:23, 1:23. And as of now, it is 2:25, so that the energy is still right, is very ripe, as a matter of fact. And I was contemplative about what cards I wanted to use because I don't know, like I just felt like I needed something fresh or different than the norm. And I have my black and white deck here on standby, which I may still pull from, but I was guided to actually pull from my own deck today. So this is my Oracle deck. If this is your first time encountering a reading of me using it, that wouldn't be unusual because I don't use it often. But this is what I feel guided to start with today and see what comes up. I think primarily because the cards themselves in nature are dark and light. You know, like there's a dark side to each card. Each one represents an expression of a traditional tarot card, but the one word summation of the card as it was channeled through me, at least one of the words that I went with for each image is channeled here, is written here in the light sense and in the dark sense. So I feel like that's where I am right now in terms of, that's kind of where we are in the energy of Scorpio for a full moon. It's really a cause for some deep psychological release, maybe even purging, cleansing, introspection, consideration, rest, and regeneration. And it's really, it can be intense. Scorpio energy is particularly when it's in the full moon capacity. As I've said, a new moon in Scorpio can be intense, so a full moon can definitely give those vibes. So anyway, not to project anything in the energy or on the energy that is not cosmically called for. That's not the intention here, but I just feel like the best cards that I have on hand to kind of give me that vibe naturally are my own, strangely enough. So here's where I stop shuffling with enlightenment, and the dark side of this card is entanglement. So that's just an example of how these cards read. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, I'm gonna take that. Let's see. Accelerate and then delay is on the other side. Now it did kind of come up in the reverse, but I'm gonna take these all upright for today. Accelerate and delay is on the back side. I don't know which one to go for, actually. Let's see. Accelerate. I knew it was the card that was flipping because it turned on its black side. Maybe I should go back and forth and see if that changes the energy at all. Like switch the size of the card. But let's go with delay first. All right, to be fair. Now let's switch to the dark side. Incompetence is on the bottom. So something may have been delayed on account of someone's incompetence. Luck. Oh. Interesting. Delayed luck. or some delayed fortune or favor. Let's see. Okay, that stays upright. Share. Hair and flicking around everywhere. Okay, so share here. Prosperous. And I was thinking like there's about to be so much abundance and luck that there's going to be plenty to share. That's what I was actually hearing. Like there's so much that you won't be able to, so much fortune and favor that you won't be able to help but to share the wealth ultimately. And the delay may have been on just, you know, what was naturally in order for things to come into alignment with this magnitude of abundance. Perhaps even you being in a high magnitude of abundance. Just the natural delays in order that come into play with the preparation that it takes to really, you know, establish yourself ready and responsible to handle not just the reception of a great deal of wealth, abundance, prosperity, favor, access, fortune, influence. To receive it is one thing, but then of course it is the discernment to know how to disseminate it, if at all, you know, what to be charitable, how to be charitable with it or benevolent with it, how to be conservative, how to invest and, you know, multiply it, how to plan and project security for the future, perhaps even future generations. Like it's not just a simple matter of a transference of wealth or power. And in this case, it was something that had to be delayed and conserved in a big way because it holds a big weight. Like it carries a huge charge, like a massive charge is what I'm getting. Yeah. Oh, look, mastery. I didn't even know that was in my hand. That's crazy. Let me just get a sip of water. All right, let's see. Yeah, mastery was at stake. Maybe mastery, when I'm hearing mastery, what comes to mind is temperance off the back. That self-control, balance, healing, like all of the major points of an evolved spirit, like the boxes that get to be checked to consider yourself or project yourself an evolved spirit, even in human form, were like the prerequisite for this transfer. Remembering that we did start with enlightenment versus entanglement. So maybe some of the entanglements there was a delay while some of the entanglements were purged or disrupted, severed. Cords cut, attachments severed, pretty much, you know. broken, or I guess like bad agreements broken. Faulty agreements. Oh, okay. Condemnation. That's a strong word. What was that? And this kind of was like, I could see relieved, but it was kind of like lifted up a bit. So I would consider that more or less kind of like a struggle in a sense. But to take the most visible side, relieved from condemnation, is powerful, or condemnation relieved, however you want to take that, like the guilt, the shame, the pressures of humanity that perpetuate fear and scarcity and survival, that that activate survival instincts as opposed to prosperity attributes. There's a relief that either has come or did come, again, on account of that delay, and maybe we could even be, depending on where you are with this, it could be a matter of this moon. Oh, look, agree is on the bottom here. It could be a matter of this moon really being like helping with the final purge of whatever residue or remnants could be lingering on account of this, on account of the delays, and particularly in the realm of condemnation, or in something in that regard, where the pressures to assimilate, or what's the other word I heard? Conform, are the chains and the attachments and the constraints that are finally being broken. Not just the ones that can be seen as it is with Scorpio, the things that are beneath the surface, the undercurrent, the things that you can't necessarily, you can't so easily, I'll say, put your finger on, to know the origins of why you might feel a certain type of way in the first place, let alone to know you even feel it, but to see how it, to see the evidence in your life and how it plays out or materializes, or becomes a matter of fact, may be the only indication of something lingering at all, but that still might not necessarily be an easy guide on the how to actually release, or again, relieve yourself from those constraints. So a moon such as this can really do some deep, dark shadow diving, I think, more for you, of course, compared to you, than anything, to just really get rid of anything that's still kind of lurking in the shadows, creating a block or a hindrance, a delay for the things that at this point are set to just organically unfold. Whatever resistances may still lie dormant or secret, this is the time where this is an ideal time for release. So, if you happen to be so enlightened, as we started this message, to know exactly what that is, at face value, to know exactly what gets to be confronted, or purged, like exactly what it is, whether it's within you or something external, then God bless you. You have the support to do so, in a moon such as this gracefully. That like there's definitely no rush. As a matter of fact, we're not only just having this full moon today, this is the only month in this year that we're going to have a super moon. I'm sorry, a blue moon, which means we're going to end this month with a full moon, and that one is going to be in Sagittarius. Aspects that are even more what's the word I'm looking for? Optimistic, to fully activate, almost to have the culmination of anything that you might discover during a time such as this. Bring full and total closure. So it's really like a transitional month, so to speak, where everybody's process may look a bit different, but how you come out of this May from beginning to end could really be the setup for how you continue on, not just through what will be transitioning to the summer season, but how you power up to continue on in the way of prosperity, hopefully, for quite an extended time. I would say at least the rest of the year, maybe for the next 10. It's like being asked now to construct your 5-year, 10-year, 10-year plan, so to speak. And again, no pressure, because it's not a matter of having something so fine-tuned that there could be no room for changes or for what's the right word? I'm having such a hard time with words right now. Changes or the word that I'm looking for, like amendments is what's in my mind, but I know that's not the word that I really want. There's room for change, approval, there's room for addition and subtraction, but to really be intentional at this particular time about the best of whatever you can project and perceive and project to create is a pivotal stance to make. And it seems very simple, I think, even to me as I'm saying it, like it doesn't seem profound to say that, but there's something subtly profound about this time. Maybe this month overall, maybe just this moon, I don't know, maybe just today, maybe just this message, I don't know. But something feels subtly profound to really agree to align with, is what I'm getting from agree, like to make a contractual agreement or contract, so to speak, in a conscious way with the best of what you wish to create and build for yourself, and project it as far into the future as you can possibly see, but again with no particular pressure on how distant that future may be from your scope as it is. And like I said earlier, I feel a lot of the purging and releasing are things that are kind of being done for you. And here's where agree comes in. It's more of an allowance, a surrender, a submission. What's the other word I looked up before in a reading? I was like, oh yeah, a consent. There it is, like a consent to allow whatever needs to be done. And I'm in that being kind of like a loaded statement, meaning whatever needs to come to an end, let it be so. And also whatever measures need to be taken to assure that ending, which secures a fresh beginning, to also be given the leeway to happen naturally, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave that there, but I am gonna take a few of the tarot. I had it here on standby anyway, and I think it's fair to take a couple. And I'm also getting with the dark cards, like it's really giving way to the things that are set to finally kind of be put to rest. The delays on moving forward, on self-actualization, on materializing the vision that you see for yourself, creating the life that you that you desire to live. Like the delays are being put to rest on that, where there's no longer this resistance, this relentless resistance to keep you from actualizing your passions, and the condemnation also being put to rest, so that it's that spirit of judgment that's like, again, like that undercurrent. Sometimes it's spoken, but a lot of times it's not. And many times it's the things that we've made agreement with that are unspoken, again, that we don't even realize are dictating our entire canvas creatively, that are the things that we tell ourselves are possible or not, the limitations that exist on what we have the ability, the responsibility, and also the right to bring to life. That's being put to rest. You'd be surprised how many of us are operating on a subconscious current of condemnation against just what is our natural organic ability to create and be a creator, that we've deferred much of that identity, really for it to be up for grabs. In some ways, not even real being intentional to defer it to any specific source outside of ourselves or other than ourselves, but it just kind of being up for grabs for the simple fact that there's a reluctance or an apprehension to fully immerse ourselves in that power, let alone to activate it and actualize it. Case in point, in the most simple form, just feeling like certain things are off limits to you. Certain privileges or powers are reserved for a divine force, i.e., God, and should be off limits to you because you're a mere mortal or a mere man or woman. And, that's exactly, and that's in the conscious creativity. Imagine the things that you don't even realize that you're making agreement with or believing to be true about yourself, maybe that you've been told, or programs that have been deep rooted in your consciousness that you just, chalked up to being the way life is. So many layers to that condemnation card is loaded. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is that I feel like those are the things that are finally being put to rest one way or another. It's like you can lay it to rest, like actually ritualize or have a ceremony to for that transition of sorts, or it will be laid to rest for you one way or another. It's out of here. And how you decide or choose to pick up the pieces after the fact, it's like something coming in and like clean slate, wiping away the things that used to be a justifiable hindrance to you. But just because those things are wiped away from existing and having an impact doesn't mean that you can't still be subconsciously operating as if they aren't, as if they still have reign or as if they're still there. So there's the reason why it's important to be enlightened and to establish a new agreement of truth with your identity, even on the other side of the cleansing and the purging, so that now you'll be actualizing the identity that's been freshly activated or newly activated, as opposed to operating in the old terms of agreement with your more limited self, or maybe less enlightened self. So it's like literally, like this is a kind of like a strange, and I might not pull tarot actually. I might just leave it at this. This is kind of a strange example, but I'm seeing it in my head. When the slaves were told, especially the ones that were told late, I can imagine, like the ones that got the news firsthand, I had the proof of the change in the establishment that as they had known it, and in society as they were used to it, may have had a different experience. But especially those that didn't know at first, and then all of a sudden somebody comes around to say, hey, did you know y'all were free? Did you know you were no longer slaves? Like, slavery has been, I always forget this damn word when I'm in a reading. Abolished. It probably was a bit hard to believe, a bit stunning. Like, so you mean to tell me we could just walk off of this plantation and nobody's going to come chasing after us? Nobody's going, by law anyway, they weren't supposed to be able to hold anybody captive. That would probably be a real tough reality to accept. I can only imagine, which is probably why a lot of slaves did stick around and, carried out their lives on the plantations that they were enslaved on, as sharecroppers and field hands and so on and so forth, because a large, to some great degree, there was probably a fear of what to do next with this newfound power called freedom. There was no point of reference for that for generations upon generations. So what do you do with that? How do you exercise that right? How do you access that power, and how do you exercise that ability? Like who, and that with very limited support on that instruction from the outside, from any outside source. As a matter of fact, the society of that time was still obliged to perpetuate different forms of slavery and servitude that were maybe not so gruesome, but certainly not very liberating. Taking advantage of those that would be afraid or just unenthused or not compelled to find life for themselves outside of what they had already known. Those establishments were able to benefit from that fear. So anyway, and even what I'm saying in that regard is loaded. So it's like you could be told today or tomorrow, like, you have the ability to do this, you have the right to do this, you have the power to do this, but it would still be up to you to fully accept that as your truth and then to actualize it. So as I was saying, like, all the things that were legitimately corrupting your creativity before could be wiped away today or tomorrow, and it just not be a subconscious transmission. Like, there be cold hard evidence that this much is true, even by just this transmission alone of me telling you so much is true, telling myself that so much is true, and it would still come down to your level of courage and will to activate the truth through your actions. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm really trying to say, all in all, is that there's a great transmission of power that is underway, that may have been delayed with good reason or maybe unjustifiably. It doesn't even matter at this point in time, any more than it mattered that the slaves in certain places were not told that they were free until months, years, I forget how much time had passed, up until Juneteenth, when the last plantation was notified. It doesn't even matter how much time was spent in ignorance or without enlightenment or in an entanglement. All that matters is what gets done after the point of established liberation, dare I say, the affirmation of your sovereignty. What do you do with that? How do you conduct yourself? What will you create? What will you proclaim? And so on and so forth. Because those are the things, those are the choices, those are the determinations that can be made for you and can't be made by anyone outside of you. Unless, of course, you defer that right for them to do so. And even that will still be a matter and a power of your own choice for that allowance of deferment. So it's like with this great transference of again, wealth and power, and by way of this affirmation of sovereignty comes a great responsibility. But one of course, is not, doesn't have to be an overwhelm unless you choose for it to be, and certainly is due to you, divinely ordained, again, like I said, just as it was in those times where the law had declared that no man was to be held captive as property, and so on and so forth. You still, as a citizen, had to assume that right in your waking life. And this spiritual proclamation still yields true in the same regard. That now your life gets to exemplify the liberty and freedom that is afforded to you by law, decreed by the divine. And anything that operates contrary to that truth only has the liberty to do so on account of what you allow. So that's people, places, and things. The limitation can only prevail if you say that it shall. So, what do you make agreement with in this season? It might be a good time to consider agreements of the past that may be outdated and may be up for review, reform, or renegotiation, particularly just with yourself more than anything or anyone else. And what new agreements, what new constitutions, new covenants even perhaps, would you like to establish that, as I said before, may be in effect for you maybe for the next decade, if not more. It seems like a bit of pressure, I'm sure, but just govern yourself in grace. All right, so I am going to leave it there. I hope that you got something from that, because it felt a bit shaky, but usually the ones that are shaky like that for me have something deeper, as I said, deeper than what's on the surface in the true fashion of Scorpio. There's something deeper that I may need to kind of dissect when I listen back, and maybe the same rings true for you. There's a deeper meaning behind the cards and even behind the words that I'm saying that will resonate more deeply with your specific situation. Nonetheless, all will be revealed in the span of this next 31 days or so. Just keep your eyes peeled, your spirit light, your heart open, and your mind focused on what matters most. All right. So I'm going to leave that there. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your Friday, your Saturday, your Sunday. I'm not sure if I'll be popping back this weekend. I may really take this time to rest. I had all these plans for today, and I was like, I just got stopped in my tracks like, no, you don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is just relax. You got everything you need right in this house, and maybe that's a word for someone listening. You know, don't feel guilty or condemned to take a pause for a good cause, to allow your senses to regenerate and rejuvenate in a way that will put you in great form for whatever this undertaking of transition may be, because no doubt it is underway, so if you can prepare yourself with rest to receive it in all its glory, you'd probably be better off for it, than to be pushing yourself to do things that really are not urgent in the grand scheme of things. Like, prioritize your time and conserve your energy wisely. All right. So, with that being said, take care, take it easy. Thanks for listening and watching. And until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.